My own mother watched me get turned away from the front door of a hotel I owned, and she smiled. Not an awkward smile. Not the kind that says, "Let me fix this." No, this was satisfaction. The security guard didn't even hesitate. He looked me straight in the eye and said I wasn't allowed inside. Not through the main entrance, not tonight. Because my sister, the bride-to-be, had left very specific instructions. Send her to the service entrance, the same door they use for delivery trucks, for kitchen staff, for people who are meant to stay invisible. And for a moment, I almost turned around. Because when your own family spends years treating you like you don't matter, you start to believe them. But here's what they didn't know. 6 months earlier, I had quietly purchased that hotel. Every chandelier, every marble floor, every room they were celebrating in belonged to me. And they were about to find out in the worst possible way. But not yet. If you've ever been made to feel invisible by your own family, I want you to stay with me. Because what happened next changed everything. And if stories like this speak to you, take a second to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Now let me ask you something. What would you do if the people who underestimated you the most suddenly had to face the truth? Because that night, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just walked through the back door and waited. And what happened after that, they never saw coming. My name is Pamela Seard. I'm 34 years old. And for most of my life, I was the daughter people forgot to notice. Not completely invisible, just easy to overlook. The kind of person who could sit at a family dinner table and somehow never be asked a single question. I found out about my sister Natalie's engagement the same way strangers did. On Facebook, a photo of her hand, perfectly manicured, resting against a glass of champagne. A diamond ring catching the light like it had something to prove. She said yes, the caption read. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. I stared at that photo longer than I should have, waiting for a message that never came. 3 days later, my phone finally rang. My mother, not to congratulate me on anything, not to ask how I was doing, just instructions. Pamela, I assume you've seen Natalie's news. Her voice had that familiar tone, sharp, controlled, already halfway to disapproval. The engagement party is this Saturday at the Sterling. Wear something appropriate, and please, don't embarrass your sister. No invitation. No, we'd love to see you. Just a warning, dressed up as concern. I remember sitting there in silence after she hung up, holding my phone, feeling something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't anger anymore. I'd moved past that years ago. It was something quieter, something heavier. Acceptance maybe, because this wasn't new. It had never been new. Natalie had always been the one who mattered. The one my mother described with pride. The one whose life unfolded exactly the way it was supposed to. When Natalie turned 25, my mother gave her $40,000 for a down payment on her first apartment. I remember the way she said it. You're building a life. This is an investment in your future. When I turned 25, I asked for a small loan. Not a gift, a loan. I had found a rundown bed and breakfast upstate. 10 rooms, outdated, struggling. But I saw something in it. Potential. My mother didn't. She laughed. Pamela, that's not a business plan. That's a fantasy. Natalie knows how to build a life. You just drift. So I went to the bank instead. 18% interest. I signed the papers with shaking hands. Knowing if I failed, there was no safety net waiting for me. That first year nearly broke me. Long nights, empty bookings, bills that didn't stop coming. But slowly, things changed. 1 room filled, then 2, then weekends, then seasons. I reinvested everything, every dollar. No vacations, no shortcuts, no one cheering me on. Just quiet work. And eventually, it paid off. 1 property became 2, 2 became 3. And somewhere along the way, I stopped expecting anyone in my family to notice. Because they didn't ask. Not once. Every phone call, every holiday dinner. The conversation always circled back to Natalie. Her job, her apartment, her perfect boyfriend. Bradley. The name came up so often, it started to feel like part of the family before I ever met him. And me, if I spoke, the room would go quiet for a moment. Polite nods. Then, someone would change the subject. Like I had said something slightly off. Something that didn't quite belong. I learned to stop trying. It was easier that way. 5 years ago, when my marriage ended, I made the mistake of calling my mother. I thought, maybe this time would be different. Maybe she would hear something in my voice. Something that sounded like pain. David had cheated. I had proof. The divorce was messy, humiliating, final. I remember sitting on the kitchen floor, phone pressed to my ear, waiting for comfort. What I got instead was a lesson. I told you, Pamela, you don't know how to choose people. Natalie would never let this happen to her. I didn't cry. Not then. Something inside me just went quiet. After that, I stopped calling, stopped explaining, stopped hoping. Because hope, in the wrong place, can be exhausting. By the time Natalie got engaged, I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I wasn't trying to be seen. I had built a life, quietly, steadily, without them. What they didn't know, what they had never even thought to ask, was that the girl they called lost, the one who was still figuring things out, had spent the last 8 years building something real, something stable, something entirely her own. And 6 months before that engagement party, I had signed the papers on my 4th property, a place called the Sterling Hotel, the same hotel where my sister was about to celebrate the happiest night of her life. A coincidence at first, or at least that's what I thought, until I saw the email and realized this wasn't just another family gathering. This was something else entirely, something deliberate. And for the first time in years, I felt something sharp again. Not anger, not even hurt, just clarity. Because if they were finally going to look at me, I wasn't going to look away. The email came in late that night, short, professional. But something about the subject line made me pause. Guest access clarification, engagement event. It was from Marcus, the general manager at the Sterling. He rarely emailed me directly unless something needed my attention. I opened it without thinking, and within seconds, I understood why. Miss Seard, it read. There are a few unusual requests from the event organizer regarding guest routing. I thought it best to bring this to you directly. Attached was a document, a guest list with notes, specific instructions for specific people. At first, nothing seemed out of place. VIP seating arrangements, dietary restrictions, security preferences, normal things. Until I saw it. 3 names, highlighted. 2 of them I didn't recognize, but the third, I read it once. Then again, slower. Pamela Seard. There was a note beside it, typed, then edited, then retyped, as if someone had taken time to make sure it was clear. Redirect to service entrance upon arrival. Do not allow access through main lobby. For a moment, I didn't move. I just stared at the screen, waiting for it to make sense. It didn't. I scrolled down. There it was again, in a different section. Staff to ensure compliance. Guest not to be visible during main arrival period. Not to be visible. I leaned back in my chair, slowly, because suddenly, everything was very clear. This wasn't an oversight. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional, deliberate, planned. My sister had arranged for me to enter her engagement party through the back door, like someone who didn't belong, like someone who needed to be hidden. Marcus had added a final note at the bottom. I found this request unusual given your relationship to the property. Please advise how you would like us to proceed. That was the moment everything shifted. Not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly. The way something does when you finally stop questioning it and start understanding it. I had options. I could cancel the event, one phone call, and the entire night would disappear. No ballroom, no music, no perfect celebration. Or I could call my mother, ask her directly, force a conversation she had avoided for years. Or I could reveal everything, walk in early, make it clear, watch them scramble to fix what they had set in motion. But none of those options felt right, because all of them required me to react. And for once, I didn't want to react. I wanted to see, to understand how far they would go, if I gave them the space to show me. So I replied, do not change anything. Let the event proceed exactly as planned. I will attend. Marcus responded almost immediately. Understood, ma'am. I'll be on standby if needed. I closed my laptop and sat there in the quiet. There's a moment before something important happens, when everything feels still, like the world is holding its breath. That's what it felt like. Not fear, not even anticipation, just stillness. The next morning, I called Daniel. We'd known each other since college, back when I was still explaining myself, still trying to be understood. Now, he was my attorney, and one of the only people who knew the full story. They did what he asked, his voice sharper than I'd heard it in years. They put you on a list, at your own hotel. Yes, and you're still going. I am. There was a pause, long enough for him to think it through. You could end this before it starts, he said. You know that, right? I know. So why aren't you? I looked out the window, watching the city move without me. Because that was the question. Why go at all? Why walk into something designed to humiliate me? I don't want them to apologize because they're caught, I said quietly. I want to see who they are when they think I don't matter. Another pause, softer this time. Okay, Daniel said. Then you don't go alone. I wasn't planning to. I'll meet you there, he continued. And I'm bringing documentation, just in case. I almost smiled. Just in case. He exhaled slowly. You're very calm about this. I'm not calm, I said. I'm just done being surprised. Saturday came faster than I expected. By early evening, the Sterling was already glowing. Lights warm against the darkening sky. Guests arriving in waves. Laughter echoing through glass doors. Everything exactly as it should be. Perfect. I stood across the street for a moment, just watching. Not the building, not the people, the moment, because I knew. Once I stepped forward, nothing about this night would stay the same. I checked my phone. A message from Daniel. In position. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I took a breath and made a decision, not about what I would do, but about what I wouldn't. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't explain. And I definitely wouldn't stop them. If they wanted me to enter through the back door, then that's exactly what I would do. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is let people finish what they started. I crossed the street, walked toward the entrance, and for the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. I was just waiting. The front entrance of the Sterling was exactly as I remembered. Polished marble, warm lighting, glass doors reflecting a version of me that looked calm, almost like I belonged there. For a moment, I just stood outside, watching people walk in. Couples dressed in soft evening colors, laughing, adjusting jackets, checking invitations. No one stopped them. No one questioned whether they deserved to be there. They simply walked in. I stepped forward, and that's when he moved. A security guard, early 30s maybe, professional, polite, the kind of man who had no idea what role he was about to play in someone else's story. "Good evening, ma'am," he said. "May I have your name?" "Pamela Seared." He checked his list. His finger moved slowly down the page until it stopped. I watched the exact moment his expression changed. Just slightly. Confusion. Then recognition. Then something else. Training. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said carefully. "You'll need to use the service entrance tonight." I didn't answer right away. "Excuse me, those are the event instructions," he continued. "The service entrance is located around the side of the building." His tone was still polite, still respectful, but firm, like he had already made peace with the decision. I glanced past him, through the glass, and that's when I saw her, my mother, standing just inside the lobby, close enough to see everything, far enough not to be involved. Our eyes met, and for a second, I thought maybe she would come out. Maybe she would say something. Maybe, just this once, she would choose me. But she didn't move. She didn't frown. She didn't look confused. She smiled, slowly, gently, like everything was going exactly the way she wanted. That smile, it told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just Natalie. This wasn't a mistake. This was approved, accepted, enjoyed. Behind her, I could see the ballroom doors open, guests drifting in, music starting, laughter building. A perfect night, unfolding exactly on schedule. Without me, the guard shifted slightly. "Ma'am, the service entrance." I looked back at him, and for a moment, I considered it. Telling him the truth, ending it right there. But then I thought about something. Every dinner where I was overlooked, every conversation I was left out of, every moment I tried and was quietly dismissed. And I realized this wasn't new. This was just the most visible version of it. So I nodded. "Of course," I said. His shoulders relaxed. "Thank you for understanding." Understanding. That word almost made me smile. I turned and walked around the side of the building. The lights changed. The sound changed. The air even felt different. The service entrance wasn't designed to impress. It wasn't meant to be seen. A metal door, bright fluorescent lighting, the faint smell of cleaning supplies, and something warm from the kitchen. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The kitchen was alive, controlled chaos, voices calling out orders, pans clattering, steam rising, everything moving, fast, precise, intentional. And then it stopped, not all at once, but gradually. One person noticed me, then another, until the entire room felt it, the shift. Chef Rivera was the first to speak. "Miss Seared." His voice dropped, almost to a whisper. "We didn't expect." "It's all right," I said gently. "Please, continue." No one moved, because they understood something the guests didn't. They knew exactly who I was, and exactly what it meant, that I had walked in through that door. "I'm just a guest tonight," I added. That seemed to release them. Slowly, carefully, the kitchen came back to life. But the energy had changed. Quieter, more aware, as if everyone was waiting for something. I walked through the narrow corridor, past trays of champagne, past servers adjusting uniforms, past doors that led back into the world I had just been denied. At the end of the hallway, there was a small glass window. Through it, I could see the ballroom, golden light, elegant tables. My sister, standing at the center of it all. Perfect, untouched, celebrated. I watched for a moment, not with anger, not even with sadness, just clarity. Because now I understood something I hadn't fully seen before. They didn't just overlook me. They had made space, without me, deliberately, carefully, completely. And still, I pushed the door open, stepped inside, and no one noticed. Not at first. I stayed near the edge of the room, a glass of champagne in my hand, blending in. Just another guest, just another shadow, until Natalie took the stage. The room quieted, all eyes on her. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice warm, practiced, effortless. "This night means everything to me." Applause, soft, supportive, exactly what she expected. She spoke about love, about family, about support, and then her tone shifted, just slightly. "Some people," she said, smiling gently, "don't always understand commitment." A pause, subtle, but intentional. But tonight isn't about that. Light laughter, polite, uncomfortable. I felt the words land. Not loudly, not dramatically, just exactly where she meant them to. And still, I didn't move, because something inside me was very, very still. The kind of stillness that comes right before everything changes. And somewhere across the room, Marcus saw me. Our eyes met. And for the first time that night, someone looked at me like I wasn't invisible. Marcus didn't rush. That was the first thing I noticed. He didn't panic, didn't draw attention, didn't break the rhythm of the room. He moved the way someone does when they understand timing. Careful, measured, deliberate. By the time Natalie finished her speech and the applause began to fade, he was already close enough. "Excuse me," he said smoothly, stepping into the edge of the spotlight. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The kind of voice people instinctively listen to, without knowing why. Natalie turned, a hint of annoyance flickering across her face. "Yes, I apologize for the interruption," Marcus continued. "There's a matter regarding the catering that requires immediate approval." She exhaled softly. I could see it. That moment of irritation, of being pulled away from attention. "Can't it wait?" she asked. "I'm afraid not," he replied. A brief pause. Then he turned, not toward Natalie, not toward my mother, but toward me. "Miss Seard," he said. Clear, respectful, unmistakable. "May I have a moment of your time?" Everything stopped. Not all at once, but enough. Enough for people to notice. Enough for silence to begin spreading, like a ripple. My mother turned first, then Natalie, then the nearest tables, eyes following the direction of his voice, until they landed on me, standing quietly, near the edge of the room, holding a glass of champagne, like I had been there all along. "Excuse me," Natalie said, her voice tightening. Marcus didn't hesitate. As the owner of the Sterling, he continued calmly, "I need your approval regarding a substitution in the seafood course." The word hung in the air. Owner. It didn't echo. It didn't need to, because it landed exactly where it was supposed to. My mother's expression changed first. Not dramatically, just enough. Enough to break. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice thinner now, unsteady. Marcus remained composed. "I was addressing Miss Pamela Seard," he said, "the owner of this property." The silence deepened. Around us, conversation stopped completely. Someone near the bar set down a glass. Too quickly. The sound of it touching the table felt louder than it should have. Natalie let out a short laugh. Sharp, forced. "That's not funny," she said. No one laughed with her. "She doesn't own anything," she added quickly. "This is some kind of mistake." I set my glass down, slowly, deliberately, and stepped forward. Not into the center, just enough to be seen. "I do," I said. My voice was calm, even, steady in a way that surprised even me. "I've owned the Sterling for 6 months. Natalie shook her head immediately. "No," she said. "No, that is not possible." She turned to Bradley. "Tell them," she insisted. "You would have known." But Bradley wasn't looking at her. He was looking at me, trying to understand. Something he clearly hadn't been told. "I wasn't aware," he said quietly. That was the moment the room shifted. Not just in sound, in energy. People straightened, leaning in, watching. Because now, it wasn't just awkward. It was interesting. My mother stepped forward. "Pamela," she said sharply, "this isn't the time for games." "It's not a game," I replied. Still calm, still controlled. "If you'd like, we can verify it." As if on cue, Daniel appeared beside me, effortless, precise, like he had been waiting for exactly this moment. "I believe I can help with that," he said, his tone professional, neutral. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Not rushed, not dramatic, just certain. "Daniel Webb," he added, "attorney for Miss Seard." He opened the folder and handed the documents forward, not to Natalie, not to my mother, but to the one person in the room whose opinion now mattered most. Eleanor Harrington. She had been watching the entire time, quiet, still, observing. Now, she stepped forward, took the papers, and read. Carefully, thoroughly. The room held its breath. No one spoke, no one moved, and then she closed the folder, slowly, lifted her gaze, and looked directly at my mother. "Is this accurate?" she asked. My mother didn't answer, because she couldn't, because for the first time, she didn't have control of the narrative. Eleanor turned slightly, addressing the room without raising her voice. "It appears," she said, "that Miss Seard is indeed the sole owner of this property." A murmur spread, soft, quick, like wind through leaves. Phones appeared. Whispers followed. Natalie stepped back, just one step, but it was enough, because the confidence she had been wearing all night was gone, replaced by something else, something fragile. "You knew?" she asked me, her voice quieter now, almost uncertain. "No," I said. "You never asked." That landed harder than anything else, because it wasn't an accusation. It was a fact. Eleanor shifted her attention from me to my mother. To clarify, she said, "You directed your daughter to enter through the service entrance of a property she owns." No one answered. They didn't need to, because everyone in the room already understood. And just like that, the story had changed. Not with shouting, not with confrontation, but with truth. Simple, unavoidable, and standing there in the same room where I had been meant to disappear. I realized something. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't even exposure. This was just the moment they finally saw me. For a moment, no one spoke. Not my mother, not Natalie, not even the guests who had been whispering just seconds before. It was as if the entire room needed time to adjust, to rewrite what they thought they understood, because everything had shifted. Quietly, completely. Natalie was the first to break. "This doesn't change anything," she said. But her voice didn't sound the same anymore. It wasn't confident. It wasn't controlled. It was searching, like she was trying to hold on to something that had already slipped. "This is still my engagement," she continued, glancing around. "My night." No one disagreed, but no one confirmed it either, because the focus had already moved. Not loudly, not intentionally, just naturally. My mother stepped closer to me. Her hand reached for my arm, then stopped, like she wasn't sure she was allowed anymore. "Pamela," she said softly. That alone felt unfamiliar. She hadn't said my name like that in years. "Why didn't you tell us?" I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. "I tried," I said, "years ago." She opened her mouth, then closed it, because somewhere, deep down, she knew that was true. "I didn't want this," she added quickly. "I didn't know." "I know," I said, and I meant it, because this wasn't about what she knew. It was about what she chose not to see. Natalie stepped in again, her composure cracking at the edges. "You embarrassed me," she said. There it was. Not confusion, not reflection, embarrassment. "I didn't do anything," I replied calmly. "I showed up." Her eyes flashed. "You let this happen," she said. "You could have said something earlier." I nodded slightly. "I could have." A pause. "But you didn't give me a reason to." That landed, because there was no argument against it. Across the room, I noticed something else. Guests beginning to shift. Not away from me, away from them. Subtle at first. A step back, a change in posture, a conversation redirected, because social gravity had changed. And then Eleanor returned. Bradley just behind her. His expression different now, more serious, more aware. "Natalie," he said quietly, "we need to talk. Not here, not now, but soon." And everyone knew it. Natalie's face tightened. "This isn't the time," she whispered. "It is," Eleanor said gently, not harsh, not unkind, but final, because some things don't wait. My mother looked between them, panic rising, trying to regain control of something that was already gone. "I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding," she said quickly. "We can all sit down." "I don't think so," Eleanor replied, still calm, still composed, but unmistakably firm. "Transparency matters," she added, "in every kind of relationship." Her eyes moved briefly toward me, then back to my mother. "And tonight, we've learned something valuable." That was all she said, but it was enough, because what she meant didn't need to be explained. I felt Daniel step closer beside me. "You all right?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "I think I am." And surprisingly, I was. Not relieved, not victorious, just steady. Because whatever this had been meant to do, it hadn't worked. Not the way they planned. I turned back to my mother and Natalie. They stood together now, but not the way they had earlier. Not united, not certain, just quiet. "I'm going to leave," I said. My mother looked up quickly. "So soon?" I almost smiled. "Yes." She hesitated. then spoke more carefully. We should talk. Not a demand, not an instruction, a request. That was new. When you're ready, I said. Not if. When. Because now, the choice was theirs. Natalie didn't say anything. For once, no sharp comment, no correction, just silence. I turned and walked toward the main entrance, the same one I had been denied earlier. No one stopped me. No one questioned me. The doors opened before I even reached them, and as I stepped outside, the air felt different, cooler, clearer, like something had finally settled. Behind me, the party continued. Music, laughter, glasses clinking. But it wasn't the same. It couldn't be, because something had been revealed. That couldn't be undone. Not by explanation, not by denial, only by time. And maybe not even then. I stood there for a moment, looking out at the city lights, thinking about everything that had led to this. All the years I had spent waiting to be seen, waiting to be understood, waiting for someone to say I mattered. And then I realized something. I didn't need that anymore. Not from them, not from anyone. Because somewhere along the way, without even noticing, I had built a life that didn't require their approval. And tonight wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about winning. It wasn't even about being right. It was about one simple thing. I didn't hide. And sometimes, that's enough. If you step back and look at this story, not as a moment of drama, but as a pattern, you begin to see something deeper. In family psychology, there's a term we don't talk about enough. The invisible child. It's the one who doesn't cause problems, doesn't demand attention, learns early that being quiet is safer than being seen. And over time, that child adapts. They become independent, self-reliant, strong in ways no one ever notices, because no one is looking. But here's the truth most people don't realize. Invisibility is not identity. It's a role, one that was given, not chosen. And the moment you stop accepting that role, everything changes. Not always loudly, not always dramatically, but permanently. Pamela didn't win that night because she exposed her family. She didn't win because she had more success or more power. She won the moment she stopped needing their approval. That's the part people often miss. Because real closure doesn't come from being recognized. It comes from recognizing yourself. So if you've ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or quietly pushed aside, ask yourself this. Are you still waiting to be seen? Or are you ready to stop hiding? And if this story spoke to something real in you, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Not just for more stories, but for reminders like this one, that your worth was never defined by the people who failed to see it.